it's incredible how God will use those experiences to give you a new perspective and then open up new doors and opportunities.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, we got an extra special treat joining me in the Hit Lab today. I've been excited to get this dude in here for quite some time. He's got one hell of a story. He's quite the entrepreneur. And we're doing a little project together at my house a little bit. He's been a huge piece of that, right? So let me get into it and let me give him a proper introduction. Folks, he's the owner and president of Paragon Roofing. He's the creator of Ammons Advantage, and he's one of Nashville's most sought out public adjusters. My man, Taylor Ammons, is in the building. Taylor, how we doing, baby?
What's up, buddy? Dude, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you again for having me on. And I've looked, I literally live a rock's throw away from here and have known about the studio for years. I got connected with you a while back. And so I'm honored to be able to sit down, have a conversation with you, be able to have a conversation with the audience and just provide some value and continue to crush life.
Come on. He is truly a rock's throw away. Those of you that have been here know that you've seen Dale out in the parking lot throwing rocks. That's what he was aiming at. He was actually aiming at Taylor's place.
Trying to throw rocks at me.
That's right. That's right. So I guess he hit it because that's how we got your attention and told you we wanted to have you on, right?
That's it. Yeah. A carrier pigeon.
That's right. Yeah. All right, so I want to get right into this because not long ago, earlier this year, we did a series of lives revolving around the horror story that is my backyard and my swimming pool, right? And what we're going through with that, with the legal and everything else. But let me backtrack a little bit. And in June of 2024, our new under a year old pool collapsed, and going through all the insurance stuff and everything else. A few months went by and we just weren't getting anywhere, man. And, so we had to get somebody that could move the needle, move the ball for us. And my boy, Nick Alfano, who is the one who connected us in the beginning, said, dude, you just need to call Taylor. He's a great adjuster. He can hook you up. And boy, he was not lying. I called you. I think it was a Saturday. You came over same day. And Taylor, we wouldn't be where we're at in the legal process getting to the bottom of this thing if it hadn't been for all the work that you did, the investigative work, the guidance and everything else, because we didn't know when to call a lawyer. We didn't know what type of lawyer to call. Bro, it literally saved my family. It saved my family. I knew you as the roofer all this time. I didn't know about the being an adjuster, man. So a few things I want to do. So first of all, thank you. For doing that. But how long have you been doing that? Being an adjuster? How'd you get into it? What's it like? I was fascinated.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I really appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to me. But I've been in roofing for 5-6 years now, but about 2 years in, majority of the work that we do is a storm restoration type project. So severe windstorm, hailstorm, tornadoes, whatever, come through and cause damage to your home. You want to reach out to a roofing company to get a thorough investigation done and see what is damaged, what isn't. Is it from the storm? Is it not? And then compile the documentation to help the homeowner prove that loss. But there's very little quality training in the roofing and home service space. So I knew that majority of the work I was doing was in insurance restoration. So I started looking into the licensing of that because I carry a public adjuster's license and a property and casualty producer license, ultimately so that I could get a peek behind the curtains of how is insurance intended to be worked and used and leveraged, and what is the intent behind it? What was it designed for? How can people utilize it in legal ways to help protect them when they have an issue like you had? And that was what triggered the whole thing was, hey, okay, I'm doing storm restoration work. Let's continue to be a student, learn more about how the other side works. That way, when I have a conversation with a client, I can fully explain not only my role, but what the role of the insurance company should be, and then some things to keep an eye out for during the process, and also pointing them towards the direction of different resources and things like that, because a roofing contractor in the state of Tennessee is able to be licensed as a public adjuster, but if you're not licensed as a public adjuster, you better stay in your own sandbox, because these insurance companies are going to do anything in their power to keep their money. And so if you have a roofer that's over here overstepping boundaries, it can lead to some pretty hefty UPPA laws, or UPPA, unauthorized practice of public adjusting, fines and fees. So ultimately, to make a long story short, I wanted to understand how insurance worked so that I could then relay that over, put it into more of a layman's terms, if you will, and make sure that it's clear to the people I get to work with.
Because, like, I say this a lot. Health insurance is the only type of insurance people actually expect to use every year.
Yep.
Not none of the other ones. But, like, there's so much just words involved in any insurance policy, especially a homeowner's one. And when you're adding, there's all these gaps that you got to cover, and between things. And especially when you're, the pool was an addition to the home, which means it was an addition to the insurance policy.
Yep.
And it's amazing how much we even learned. We're insurance people, and it's how much we learned about that process from going through it, and it's ironically enough, we were going through that insurance claim, as well as, not earlier this year we had a deer, so we were going through another one with the car and so on and so forth. But it's, so it's there when you need it. But, like, again, our insurance company did not cover our pool, very clearly stated it, even though you helped us appeal it 3 times just to make sure. But that wasn't our, that wasn't, and they shouldn't have covered it. That's why we're in a legal matter right now with it, right? You know what I mean? So it's just, but again, we wouldn't have known what to know. I might have resented my own insurance company had I not had somebody that knew what they were doing to balance everything, all the information coming back and forth and everything else. It's just, I don't know, man. It doesn't pay me to learn that stuff, right? Which is just like it doesn't pay me to learn everything about that my accountant does. I just want to know that I send it to them, everything they need. They do. We've got a common goal together. They do their part. I do mine. They get paid. I get paid because I was able to do what I do. And it worked out. So I got to say, it was a great experience. The reason why it was a great experience, though, and I think it's why you're such a badass roofer, is because the where we're at in 2025 this year with all the new technology and AI and everything else. It just feels like customer service has just kind of gone out the window. I don't think it's necessarily on purpose. I think it's because people can reach people at scale and they've never been able to do that before. And that you have to manage a lot of relationships that way. Both online and in person. And I think people are struggling with that. But working with you, it was never one of those things where, like, we send a text or an email and 3 or 4 days later we can get a response. It was always same day response. And just the turnaround was so fast. The whole process got really quick for us in that pool thing once we started working with you. But more importantly, we understand what we were actually doing and what we needed to accomplish.
Well, and I think that's why so many people will reach out and hire professionals for things, because, to your point, it does us no good to focus on and learn some of these things that maybe we're not great at. Just go find the professional that is, but make sure you're educating yourself to where you know how it should go, just in case something looks fishy. And that's what I like to do on the roofing side of things, is point these customers towards, United Policyholders. They have a nonprofit that has a ton of resources for homeowners if their insurance company's playing games. Or, based on their insurance company, here's some things that I've seen in my experience that may help you. That way they can see, all right, this is how it should go. And then in the event that X happens, we're going to do Y. It's all about, how's the process and everything going to flow? And then how are you conveying that over to your homeowner, and then making sure that that's clear so that all the expectations are there, and then you can move through the process, because the roofing contractor has a role, the homeowner has a role, and the carrier has a role throughout the process. And they need to play in those sandboxes. But to your point, if I've never been through a property insurance claim and I'm going up against my insurance company who does thousands a day, who's going to win if it comes down to, we're going to, move the goalposts, the carrier's going to win. And so educating the homeowner to know what should and shouldn't happen and how the process should flow is just a massively powerful tool. And that's where I'm kind of transitioning into in the roofing space with the Ammons Advantage, is to try and get that into as many owners and sales reps' hands as possible so that they can provide that white glove experience at scale and replicate that and just continue to grow their business, but provide massive value to their clients.
Is that so? Ammons Advantage. That's more of a consulting type situation company, right?
Correct. Yes, because, and I'm sure that we'll briefly get into this, but there's an acquisition on the horizon, and in that role, I'll be able to step into being a director of sales, which is my bread and butter. It's everything that I enjoy doing. And I'll be excited later on in the episode to dive into kind of business in general, because I was a cocky sales rep. I was making my 10% commission. The jobs were averaging 30 to 40% gross margins, and I was doing everything besides ordering the materials. And so I'm like, well, I should just start my own company. The only thing I'm not doing is ordering materials.
Yeah.
And I was so wrong.
Yeah.
And so being able to have this opportunity on the horizon where, we'll use an Alfano term here, step into my zone of genius and then be able to flourish. And then the Ammons Advantage is going to piggyback off of that, where I'm going to take the knowledge that's in my mind, get it down onto paper, into a text format. That way we can start a community of like-minded people, and we can provide these sales reps and owners resources to, again, provide that incredible experience.
Love it. I love it. So the consulting company is kind of like the main hub for the roofing company and everything that you do as an adjuster, right? So it's kind of like that. That's kind of like the entry to barrier, like, you know what I mean, with that, because that was what you were for us. At the end of the day, it wasn't as much of an adjuster, it was a consultant.
Correct. Yeah. And then, because it'll have resources for contractors, for business owners, and for homeowners to be able to point them towards different things. Because again, if somebody doesn't hire me as their public adjuster, there's certain things I can't do. Same thing with attorneys. If you have a conversation with an attorney, they may make, hey, you're going to have to hire me, and then we'll have that conversation. Yeah. And so there's things that legally have to be done. Yeah. And so
it's for the customer's protection, right?
Correct. Yep. And then at the end of the day, the insurance companies owe a duty to their shareholders.
That's right.
It's a business.
Sure. For profit.
Correct. And so I don't believe insurance companies expected the dumb roofers to catch on to, hey, insurance pays for storm damaged roofs. And then there's so many people that go door to door. Hey, did you know you have this? Did you know you have that? I bet your door gets knocked on all the time, or little door hangers that get put up. And so we're seeing a lot more roofing companies going through and pushing these homeowners to get these claims filed. And what are we seeing? We're seeing rates skyrocket. We're seeing actual legitimate claims be denied. Yeah. We're seeing claims that shouldn't be filed be filed. We're seeing roofs that shouldn't be replaced. Yeah. And it's all, I don't want to say it's all, but so much of it is just these roofing companies trying to pad their pockets, or these insurance companies wrongfully denying claims to pad their pockets.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we have a moral issue here.
Fact.
So it's one of those that we can't change the world until we do the work on ourselves. So if there's that old adage that be the change that you want to see, and it's true, because if I want to see the roofing industry and the insurance industry change, then I need to be that change and then emulate it out.
Yeah. Hi folks, I'm your man Nick Hyder, and I just want to say a quick thank you for all of you, the millions of you tuning into the Hitstreak. If you have not already, subscribe to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Share your favorite episodes with your friends, your team, literally whoever needs a lift. We've built a worldwide audience of millions, and we're just getting started. Every episode, we're breaking down the playbook of top performers so that you can get to that next level too. We're literally getting the information from the people that have it to the people that need it by bringing on guests that everybody knows and some that not everybody knows yet. So again, thank you for being a part of this movement. Keep listening, keep sharing, and keep leveling up with the Hitstreak. The word that I'm trying to describe when talking about what changed for Rhiannon and I once with our pool claim, once we started working with you is we actually, where we were lost is we didn't have a strategy. We didn't know, like, call this person, call that, but it was like, for what outcome are we actually trying to get here?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Is it just to get everything put back together? What is it? Is there wrongdoing? And it's like, they owe us better than this type thing, or, what is it? Because that was, we were not the type of people that are looking for a handout, we just, we thought we were hiring the best. We built the best.
Yep.
And so we just want the best. And it's, you've seen it. It ain't the best right now.
No, it had a little issue.
As a matter of fact, my son and I had to drain it yesterday just because it fills up with rainwater. It's a swamp. We got a pond in our backyard now.
Put some fish in it.
Yeah, dude, it collects all the bugs and the mosquitoes. It's like a pit for that. So we have to literally go out and drain it. It's filthy. And then we have to wash our drain off all the time. It's a pain in the butt, all for a big ugly hole in the ground.
Yep.
You know what I mean? A big ugly hole in the ground. So, but the strategy is the key thing, because it's like, first of all, before you can form a strategy, you got to know you got to have all the elements in play, right? Yep. You got to have all your ingredients or whatever it is. And you got to know when to, just like if you're cooking, you got to know when to add those ingredients. It's a timing issue. Yep. Right. So that was one of the things that you gave for us, is you basically were like, hey man, you came over and looked at everything. You're like, yeah, dude, you got to pay attention to this. I'm like, God, I didn't even go on that side of the pool, Yep. And then it was like, all right, so here's like the 4-step process that basically that we're going to do. We're going to peel this, we're going to contact that, we're going to reach out to here, and so on. And all of a sudden it was like, all right, we have movement. Yep. And but we know we're moving in the right direction. Yep. And it was huge because it was peace of mind, because that was such a big deal. What you did for us besides strategy is you collapsed time like nobody's business for us. Because my wife and I have probably 100 hours combined, if not more, into this thing.
I believe it.
And how many more would it have been had you not shown up that Saturday? You know what I mean? Which most people won't even show up on a Saturday.
Yeah. Well, and because deep down, right when I saw it, I'm like, the builder should have handled this issue.
It shouldn't look like that.
No. I'm like, this should have been something that, and it would have pained me, but I would have went through, if it were my business, filed a claim on my GL. We made a mistake. This is what happened. We need to make it right. Not only because it's the right thing to do, but you're dealing with somebody that has a lot of influence in the area too, and can ultimately sink your company if they want to. But don't do it for that reason. Yeah. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. But if you need some motivation, the influence that you have, it should have been enough to kind of get that thing moving along. But and my whole strategy, if you will, on that was ultimately Erie should cover this and then go after the general contractor. Was the logic behind it. Because when we buy insurance, we're trading that risk. Hey, in the event that something happens, you're going to step in, pay the financial side of it. I'm going to pay the deductible, or for healthcare, copay. And then we're going to get this thing taken care of, unless it's actually excluded in the policy. And then subrogation, it's no different than if I go out here and get into a car accident, my insurance company will go ahead and get me restored and then go after the other company to get their money back. And that was my whole, kind of logic on y'all's was, hey, we should get the insurance company to cover this and then go after the builder so that you can go ahead, get this thing put back to normal, enjoy life, enjoy your backyard that you spent as much money as you did on, and then let the insurance company go after the pool builder. But at this point, they threw their hands up, they being the insurance company, and said, hey, we're not going to do it. And
yeah, it's in black and white. It's in black and white. And I got to say too, Josh Minton, I want to give him a shout out because he's been great to work with as well, which is our agent. And again, like it's outside of the legal part, and everybody on our side, let's just say in our camp, it's been a wonderful experience working with them. But again, we wouldn't have even known how to enable our insurance company or our agent to be a huge help.
Yep.
Yeah, they got other clients. They got tons of stuff to do, and I haven't, if I'm not calling Josh today with an insurance claim, so he's got to have something to do today too, Yep. So, but it's, I got to say it was overall, it's been, I could say it's a good experience from a customer service standpoint because there's good people that care, that are doing all they can do. Yep. And it's been a great thing. And you just helped us with that strategy, man. So,
appreciate that.
That was really important to us. Now, you mentioned something that I really want to spend some time on for a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Because everybody is that, every parent is thinks they should coach their kid's team better than the coach can. Every employee thinks they should have their boss's job. Every just like you said, every sales rep thinks that they should be taking it. Everything should flow through me, right? Yep. So that's a common thing. And then you find out there's a lot more under the hood once you start looking under there. Yep. You know what I mean? So I want to stay there for a minute because one, you handle that with such grace and you recognize it quick, and how much more respect you've acknowledged all the respect that you should have gave somebody in the past. I was the same way, by the way.
Okay.
So talk to me about some of the biggest things that you learned when you mentioned that you were a sales rep and all they do is order the product, right?
Yep.
All right. So it's kind of like this, we were going over this podcast today, how it's, 10 to 12 hours total of staff and thousands of dollars of cost into every single episode. And when people realize that, they treat it different, but they don't know what they don't know, right?
Yep. Yeah. And then our mind works so wild too, because 10, 12 hours, thousands of dollars, it's like, I can do it for less than that. It won't take me that long. But yeah, so ultimately I never planned on being a business owner. It was never in the cards. I didn't grow up in a family that was just loaded with entrepreneurs and money. My dad was military. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. After they got divorced, she got back into the workforce and was working. Sister went to college, got 2 degrees. I went to college twice, dropped out, and when I got into sales, I had my first, 5-figure months. I made 10 grand in March of 2016 or something like that.
That's good money back then.
Yeah. And just, I didn't even go back to college. I was in school at the time and just was like, nope, I'm a sales guy for the rest of my life. And then was in automotive sales for about 5 years and met a guy that ran a roofing company. And he had offered me an interview, and I kind of kicked it off. And then a few months later, had a slow month. And I said, let me find out what this roofing sales is. And I wish I had found it way sooner, because selling automotive, you're at the dealership bell to bell. For the guys at the car lots, they know what I'm talking about. So you're bell to bell 5-6 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day, every holiday, every Saturday, occasionally on Sundays. And so you're always at the office. And it's not like that in roofing and home services. You're out and about, you're meeting people, you're networking, you can be making money golfing, there's all kinds of ways that you can get smart and strategize on how you're going to acquire customers. And my specific one is networking with insurance agents and things like that, because I'm not a big door-to-door guy.
Right.
But a standard sales commission for a roofing sales professional or a home service sales professional is normally 100% commission, and somewhere between 7 to 12% of the total contract price. Sometimes they'll pay that out as a percentage of profit, but overall it comes out to 7 to 12% of the total contract price.
Okay.
And so when I looked at it, I was like, man, I'm having to manage the jobs, you know, because I would set a particular expectation, and the way that I understood the company I was selling for was going to operate, and then they would have materials delivered, a sub crew show up, and it was just the Wild West. And so I wanted to be out there to make sure that everything I told the Hyder family was going to happen during their re-roofing project actually happened. Because I don't care how good your sales process is. If you botch the install, you might not get a bad review, but they're not going to refer you. You know, some people think that, oh, well, we didn't get a bad review. Well, you didn't get a good one,
Right.
and they're not going to refer you.
Yeah.
So we need a good review and to create a raving fan. And so I started waking up at 4 a.m. and was building Paragon, because I said, man, I'm going to do my own thing. And so I'm saving money. I had a couple $1,000 to my name, and again, waking up at 4, work till 6:30 or 7, get in the shower, head into the office, go sell roofs for the day, go home that night, keep working on stuff. And I got the best piece of business advice from a guy named Pete Lemondola. He owned Victory Lane Auto Sales down in Warner Robins, but he's got his hand in about 20 different businesses, maybe 50 by now.
Okay.
But super knowledgeable guy. And I called him because when I knew him, he had actually bailed me out of jail one time. So I was really excited to tell him about this venture I'd started. And he said, I'm going to give you the best piece of business advice, and I wish somebody had given it to me, is grind your face off until you have $500,000 in the bank. He said, I don't care how long it takes. He said, don't go buy a bunch of trucks. Keep your overhead as low as possible. Stack your money. Once you have 500 grand in the bank, call me, and then start to scale the business.
Yeah.
And I said, sounds good, man. I started it with 6 grand and didn't take a bit of it, his advice.
Yeah.
You know, I just started getting the subscriptions, started doing this, started doing that.
Yeah.
And just had way over leveraged myself. But I was a sales guy.
Yeah.
And I could go out and make more sales. And so that was the way that I had justified that. And what they don't tell you is there's a lot of compliance that goes into the back end. That other 20 to 30% pays for a lot of stuff.
That's right.
Because I would say
stuff that allows you not to sell.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I would even say keeps you from selling, you know, because, you know, as the owner of Paragon, I would probably say that probably only 25% of my time I'm doing revenue generating activities. The other stuff, I'm sending invoices, I'm doing some stuff in QuickBooks, I'm going through and organizing this, building this spreadsheet, doing this KPI.
Calendar invites, booking stuff, replying to emails.
Oh my gosh, you know, and even like the supplemental stuff. And there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
And it was a massive eye-opener to me. So, you know, unless there's roofers out there that have a unique approach that they want to bring to the market or something like that. I mean, the guy that I first started selling roofs for told me, he said, I wish I'd never started this. He said, I wish I would have found a company that was going to pay me on time and install the way that I wanted installed, and just be a sales rep, work 35 hours a week, make $250,000 a year, and enjoy life. But he's like, no, I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted big problems. And so that was the biggest thing with me is it was all ego. I could do it. I. When I started working on and becoming the version of myself that God called me to be, I realized where I'm at in this phase of my life, I'm not a number one yet. Not of what I want to be.
Sure.
And so that's kind of what segued us into the acquisition that we're currently working on. It's just I'd gotten in up over my head, and I was afraid. I was ultimately kind of running the company into the ground, but almost by accident.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because I wasn't focusing on the money that was coming into the business and things like that. I was just out doing these things, and then leaned on my coaches, and then was like, oh, yeah, we've got an issue here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's nothing that we couldn't have ultimately sold our way through, but we had to go through and get systems in place, processes in place, and kind of map out what the customer experience was, because, my first couple of years in business, we were just doing the thing. And then when I started hiring, I started realizing the importance of having these processes formalized to where we can replicate the stuff that I know, which is what spawned the Ammons Advantage. So, again, it was just all a place of ego. Was look at this cool stuff that I can do.
Yeah.
And so it's incredible how God will use those experiences to give you a new perspective, and then open up new doors and opportunities.
Are you ready to take your brand digital? At HitLab Creative, we don't just make content. We build your digital foundation from the ground up. So whether you're launching a podcast, creating scroll-stopping social media content, or building a website that actually converts, we connect all the dots. Podcast production, CRM systems, content strategy, data analytics, branding, it's all under one roof. Because in today's world, content without strategy, it's just noise. And you're here to make an impact. So if you're ready to launch smarter, grow faster, and create with a purpose, it's time to team up with the HitLab. Visit hitlabstudio.com/studio-time and let's build something that lasts. Because the HitLab is where digital strategy meets data-driven content creation.
Everybody has that, I think everybody has that moment where if they're going to have a transition, well, you can't use that word anymore. If you're going to make a personal change, if you're going to personally grow or develop, there's a moment that you go that changes the trajectory. Okay, it changes the direction of your growth. For me, I've talked about it tons of times. It was on my son's 5th birthday when I had a meltdown. God gave me the ability to leave my body and see what I looked like in front of my wife and kid. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, that's not at all who I was. Honestly, I'm still appalled at what I saw that day. You know what I mean? And I remember it every day. What was your moment where you made the decision to change? And when I say change, I'm talking change.
Yeah. I was in a bathtub in Orlando after a roofing conference, or during a roofing conference. And it was actually Ed Milet was there and John Maxwell was there. And this particular day was the meet and greet with Ed.
Okay.
And that morning that I woke up, was the same as it had been for about the last 2 or 3 months. And this was my morning routine. Wake up, projectile vomit for 2 hours.
Okay.
And at the time, my old business partner, he got back into healthcare, but he was my business partner at the time. We were down in Orlando together, and I'm getting sick, and he goes, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, this is normal." And he's like, "Okay, how long has this been going on?" And I'm like, 2 or 3 months. And I was like, it happens for the first couple hours I'm awake, and then it goes away. And he was like, "How much are you drinking?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, I'll go get a 12-pack of Trulies, and then usually a 750 milliliter, so a fifth, or maybe a 1 liter of Tito's, and then a gallon of cranberry juice." And my wife would have about 2 or 3 of those. Or 2 or 3 of the Trulies, and then I would usually drink all the Trulies and most of that bottle of Tito's. Mm-hmm. And then the next morning when I would wake up, once my body started moving, I immediately would get sick.
Yeah, it had to release itself.
Until I got a shot of liquor in me, and then I figured out, I can take a shot of liquor and my throw up goes away. but I didn't realize how much the alcohol was affecting me. So this morning that I was throwing up, after 2 hours, it had continued to progress. And I went from the bathroom to the bed, and I was, stripped into my boxers and was just laying cold rags on my body. My body was just burning up, and ended up not being able to do the meet and greet with Maxwell. Was barely able to get any fluids down. I didn't eat for about 2 days, and then flew back home to Nashville, went and had some blood work done, because I'm like, there's something going on here. Now, granted, this was about 3 days after that morning of sickness. And so got a call from the doctor's office, and I actually just went to a random little lab. And so she asked me to come in, and I went over there, and she called me back there, and we sat down. She handed me the blood work, and she was like, I want you to take this paperwork and go to Vanderbilt and get checked in. And she was like, you can go to a walk-in clinic or something. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, what I'm looking at here, your liver and kidney levels are off the charts. So they're like, you have something going on that you need medical attention. And so I was like, okay. And so I called my wife and said, hey, they want me to go to Vanderbilt. So went into Vanderbilt, walk in down here in Nolensville, and they did blood work. This was, again, 3 days or so after that morning that I was so sick. And they came back in and said, you need to go downtown to Vanderbilt downtown. And
the big joint.
Yeah, they'll be expecting you. Go to the emergency room. And I'm like, do I have to? And they're like, or no, I didn't say, do I have to? I said, really? I was like, can I go home and change? And they were like, we would rather you go straight there, but if you want to go get comfortable, that's fine, but we need you to promise us you're going. And I was like, I'll go, that's fine. And spent 12 hours in the ER, and doctor comes walking in, and he goes, what's your plan, man? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, what's your plan to get sober? And I was like, and immediately my good friend, Bubba Richards, he passed away in March of 24. He immediately popped into my head, because he had been in recovery for about 3.5 years. And I knew that he was the guy. And I'm like, I said, I've got a good friend of mine that I'm going to reach out to. He's been in recovery. I'm going to have him walk me through some of the steps, and I'm going to get clean. And so I had to sell this doctor on what my plan was for sobriety, because he told me, he was like, okay. He was like, I believe you, because if I didn't, you weren't going to go home, because they were actually going to admit me to the hospital. Okay. Because, obviously just psychological stuff. And so at that point, I remember I was willing to do whatever it took to not live and feel the way that I was feeling.
Okay.
And that was where I had the biggest breakthrough. Is I knew that at some point, a lot of alcoholics will say that if I didn't stop drinking, I wouldn't be here today. I don't know that for sure, but I do know that Vanderbilt's ER doctor told me that if you continue to drink, alcohol will kill you. He didn't say, you've got 6 months, but he said that my liver and kidney levels were at the onset of liver and kidney failure. And so I was ultimately drinking myself to death, and I didn't want to die.
Right.
And that was the biggest thing, is I was just like, man, there has to be more. I've lost too many people close to me.
Yeah.
God has something planned for me. There's a reason I'm still here. But if I continue to drink and numb my mind in any of these feelings or emotions, I'm going to numb and miss what God's called me to.
It's weird as we get older, when you're growing up, very few of your kids, of your friends have issues with substance abuse, you know what I mean? But as you get older and life gets harder for some folks, and they don't have anything anybody they feel like they can lean on, or they don't feel like they can lean on themselves, they end up leaning on something.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's the form of a substance. And Man, it's cool that you bring that up today because there's been it's affected my wife and I's family, and it's affected a lot of friends, and as you get older, it affects more and more and more people because life goes on, and a lot of times the weight of life only gets heavier for some folks as they go, and that's their only way out. And I gotta say, man, because coming from, it was over a decade, my wife and I were in the bar business. I used to smoke every time I only smoked at the bar, but I was at the bar almost every day, and we drank every day, and that was how I got 55, 60 pounds heavier. And I wouldn't say I abused it. I mean, I probably did, but it wasn't. I didn't do it every day. It was only at night when we were there. It was never, I wasn't that guy that had to have it all the time. But it was amazing, one, how awesome your body is and how it can heal itself. That was first and foremost. But secondly, I didn't realize how bad it made me feel. And I lost, the last half of the latter couple of years of my 20s and the first half of my 30s in that, to that. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was in peak physical condition as an athlete, but that was on the surface kind of underneath it. And I was blessed that I didn't get addicted to those things. I was blessed that it didn't take a harder toll than it maybe could have. But dude, I know so many people that struggle with this these days, and I've been introduced to so many great folks, like Smiles for Recovery and Hustle Recovery and Cedar Recovery and all these great and amazing organizations that are helping people with that. But more, and what they're finding is that these people just have to have something to live for so they won't relapse, and literally as I sit here interviewing today, I've got my top veneers. It's the first day I've ever had them. They got installed last night, and that's and that's the thing that we're doing with Smiles for Recovery, and that's one of the ways that they get people once they've lost all their teeth due to drug use or whatever addiction. They it's one of the ways they keep them from relapsing is they give them hope. They give them a smile. So hope comes in many forms.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and stuff like that goes a long ways.
Well, so what was your source of hope? Was it that doctor? And what'd your wife say during all this? You know what I mean? Was she like, dang you, I don't get my 3 Trulies every night? Like, what happened?
No, I would say that my wife was super supportive.
Did she know that this was an issue? Or
She knew, and it was causing issues in our relationship. And had I not gotten into recovery and gotten myself clean and stopped drinking, I wouldn't have been married. It caused the wedding to get delayed. I don't like the person that I am when I drink. Sober Taylor, I'm very faithful. I'm a good friend.
I figured that out too.
I'm a man of my word. Drunk Taylor is not. I'm all womanized. I'm not a good friend. I'm a liar. So there's that version of me exists, and I have to consciously every day make the decision that I'm going to show up as the version of myself that is going to be a beacon of hope to the world, and not somebody that people don't want to be around. And so she actually had no issues putting it down. And being supportive of me. She's never had an issue with alcohol. She has a really low tolerance. And so she didn't even drink at the house for probably a year, or even around me. And then we would go to El Sombrero or something, and I'd be like, get a margarita? And so now she will, now I'll go buy her, alcohol and bring it home. And then I'll occasionally have an NA beer or something like that if we go to a dinner somewhere and I just want to have something different.
Those things are getting good, by the way. Corona's got a good one.
Oh, do they? I saw it, but I was sscared it was going to taste like water.
No, it tastes just like, honestly,
because I got the Heineken Zero and I was like,
Okay, so the Heineken Zero's okay, but Corona Premier, that's the beer that I like, right? Yep. And however, I don't even really like it that much. Actually, it's just the beer I like most.
Yep.
And but it was I guess it was New Year's Eve. I had the non-alcoholic ones.
Yep.
Bro, if you hadn't have told me, I wouldn't have known. It tastes a lot like that Premier. Now, some people are like, well, the Premier is light. Of course it is. It's, I don't know. I guess if beer that means much to you, you can have it. but it doesn't for me. I choose other things, right?
Yep.
So, so you mentioned the word consciously. All right. So greatness is not by accident. It's always
Correct.
on purpose, which means you are consciously making an effort to do it.
Yep.
Okay. I think that was such a cool thing that you said, because you recognize that you had a problem, and it took you consciously making an effort to improve on that problem and get a new result. Right.
Yep.
That's a lot of folks are really starting to figure that out right now, that's their subconscious and conscious behavior. And we're starting to question a lot more and be aware of a lot more.
Yep.
But I know you help a lot of guys. I know you help. That's where I actually met you when I spoke for Nick at one of the, I don't even know what EV it was, but it was at the program at one of those first events
It
that
might
he
have
had.
been 11 or 12. I
a
know
while
10
ago.
was out in Vegas at Brad's spot.
I spoke at that one too, and I spoke
Okay.
at one a year or two before that.
Nice.
But yeah, that was how I met you the first time.
Yep.
And the first thing I thought, and this is with all ladies, he's married, right? So back off. But this is real. Like that you came up, you introduced me, you're like, and you introduced yourself as a roofer. And I remember you walked through, I looked at Nick, I was like, what's that guy doing on houses looking like that? You know what I'm saying? And he was like, bro, he don't even know. And I was like, that's cool. That is cool. You don't look, I say that as a compliment. You don't look like most blue collar dudes.
Okay.
Or guys in the blue collar space. You should be dealing with customers. You should be building relationships, because that is what you're good at. And then, it's not one of those things where you are a very memorable look. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have a
Well,
very
thank you.
distinct look around you.
Thank you. Yeah, I know Alfano always jokes about that. He's like, man, my boy I'd have got a crush on you.
Oh yeah. Well, it's, when you recognize things that stand out about people,
Yeah.
that's what it is for me. And there's things that stand out for folks that aren't good, and
Yep.
there's things that stand out that are good, and the things that stand out for you that are good definitely outweigh the things that might stand out that are not, because I hadn't figured them out. That's what I'm doing today. I'm figuring them out right now.
Well, and that means so much to me, because not that long ago, I was the type of person that people didn't want to be around.
Yeah.
There was just trouble that followed. I've told my wife, a decade ago, I remember walking up to bars, and the bouncers in my hometown could tell by the look on my face and the way I was carrying myself if they were going to let me in or not.
But yeah,
Because they knew I
yeah.
was going to clear the place out at about 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then to now be in a position where I get people that reach out and say, thanks for the way that you live. You give me hope to get sober. Or, hey, I'm struggling with drinking. Am I an alcoholic? Or, hey, my wife has talked to me about this. What are your thoughts? So like being able to flip that all the way around
Yeah.
to where not only do people want to be around you, but they want to hear from you is just, I'm trying to think of a different word from humble.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
The Hitstreak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com.
I spent, I don't know, probably up to like year 34, 35 of life hiding from all the skeletons in my closet, meaning like all the things I wasn't proud of. It's like you don't want people to know that. And then I got, and it's funny too, because if you're going on a weight loss journey, once you've hit your destination weight, you cannot wait to tell people what you used to weigh and what you weigh now. You can't wait to show them the skeletons in your closet, right? Yep. And the moment that I got comfortable with myself and the growth and the trajectory and everything else was the moment that I no longer cared about the dumb stuff I did in the past or the skeletons I had in my closet, and the moment that I actually realized that I want to go where I want to go with my family, and I care I care that they're on board, but everybody else, if you got an opinion about it, you can keep it, you can have it, it's yours. I just don't need it,
Yep.
And I didn't care, and at that moment I was free.
Yep.
When were you? So first thing you got to do is make a decision to heal.
Yep.
All right. And then it's almost like a butterfly. They'll rave about the butterfly, but they'll hate on the caterpillar, right? So when did when were you comfortable when you spreading your wings that you're like, yeah, dude, look at that ugly caterpillar I used to be? How long did that transition take for you, just for those folks that might be going through something similar?
Yeah, man, I would say, because here's the biggest thing, and you said it, is you spoke to it, and you were no longer ashamed or whatever. And so I made it 97 days the first time I was getting clean. And that was after the Orlando stuff, and then ended up going on the road. And I call it secret sober. I was getting secret sober. I was going to stop drinking, but nobody was going to know that I was going to stop drinking. And what that led to was me relapsing, because the first time I got around friends and they brought up drinking, old Taylor came right back up and the relapse happened. And so I had to learn that once I put it out there and said, this is what I'm doing, here's who I am, please hold me accountable, nothing had power over me anymore. So it's same thing with, if it is an addiction or pornography or whatever it is, the second you put it out there and say, this is what I'm struggling with, I need help, it'll blow your mind how quickly you're okay with not being okay.
Yeah.
Because you know that you've made the first step in having true peace in the future. But I would say that, after the relapse, when I got back and got serious and made a public proclamation about this on social media, is when it all changed. So I would probably say, probably within the first 30 days.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's relatively quick. And then I still have bad moments.
Sure.
The biggest thing was, when you think about doing anything for the rest of your life, it's very daunting. Mm-hmm. You're like, I don't want to think about doing anything for the rest of my life. But when you flip that to, because all I can control is this present moment and what we have going on right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to opt to not drink right now. My wife gets mad at me because I joke that I may get tore up this weekend. I don't know. I might get tore up tonight. I don't know. But I'm not planning on it.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that I do the things that I need to do each and every day to maintain this version of myself and keep that constant contact with God, and continue working on speaking through things that I'm dealing with, and not allow skeletons to stack up in my closet, and just push, but I don't have to worry about everything. I just worry about today. And then I really don't even worry. I just put it in God's hands and say, hey, let's stay focused today.
Absolutely. Well, tell me more about the exciting acquisition. So first of all, anytime you form a business, or start anything, you start it with the end in mind, right?
Yep.
So, everything that I'm involved in business right now, it's what's the end? So if it was like, let's just say the HitLab agency, right? So at the end of the day, when we finally made the decision, like, we got a business here, let's do it.
Yep.
Well, am I going to die doing it? Right? Am I going to sell it? Am I going to liquidate it when I'm done?
Yep.
What's the end look like? And at the end of the day, the acquisition should be the goal of every company.
Yep.
However, that's just my opinion. Okay. And I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule. So you are being acquired, bro. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's big stuff. That means another company thinks enough of your company and your customer base and everything you got going on to say, dude, our company would be better with that in it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And then it comes to structuring that deal. Mm-hmm. So congratulations again, dude.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Talk to me a little bit about that acquisition and what's got you excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. So everybody has to have the end in mind. There's going to be an exit, whether it is the ultimate exit where you pass, or you get to a point where you're tired, you retire, you pass it down to kids. So to your point, and I would even argue that maybe half of business owners don't even have that plan, maybe more of like what the actual end goal is. But I knew when I started Paragon that I wanted to sell the business. And I knew deep down that I see myself in a position where in the future, I'm speaking, I'm training people, I'm teaching them how to do these things that I've learned how to do, and then ultimately grow people and make them better people and allow them to then transform their world and their life and allow the butterfly effect to go from there. But so ultimately, there is two gentlemen that own roofing companies currently, both of which are at the ability where they could exit right now, but they're in their mid-40s, and their mindset behind it is, what are we going to do at this point? Because, we'll have plenty of money, so what's the next phase? And so they both are like, let's grow a franchise. And so both of their issues are they're the CEO guys. One's very ops minded, finance minded. The other one is very CEO, visionary minded, network, those type things. But they're like, who's going to grow and run the sales team? Because we have stuff that we're going to be doing. And that was where they were interested in me, because I've done networking with them. And so and this is what may blow people's minds, or maybe not, is it's not because we're just raking in all this money and we have a massive EBITDA. It's because of who I am and what they know I'm going to be capable of doing with the right team around me. And so there's a lot of people that are in a position now where they are able to be acquired if they humble themselves a little bit and check their ego at the door. And so our ultimate goal is to structure an ultimate holding company that owns the different locations. And then one of the guys will be the CEO, the other one will be the COO, and I'll be positioned as a director of sales with a temporary position here in Nashville as the sales manager GM, with the intention of growing the Nashville office to around 3 million this year, next year around 5, but next year, technically the end of this year, first part of next year, put the GM in place in Nashville to where now I'm free and can begin to deploy out to these other areas to grow their sales teams. And then in 2026, myself and the other guy that his strength is in his network and his connections are going to, at that point, start really getting public about this thing and start putting companies in front of the operations and finance guy so that he can then vet the company and see, are they a good fit to be rolled up in here? And then it's our intention to have a handful of locations, with the main corporate office being ran out of the Midwest, and with 3 exits over the next 36 to 48 months. The first one being 12 to 18 months from now. Start getting some PE money behind this thing, hit the gas, and just let it ride.
Hey, pardon this quick interruption, but it's a good one. You're listening to this ad right now, which means someone else could be listening to your ad in this exact spot. That's right. If you've got a business, a brand, a product, a podcast, or even just a message you want people to hear, you should be advertising right here on the Hitstreak. This is the moment, the placement, the audience, and you're already hearing how powerful it is. So don't just listen to ads, run one. Go to nickhyder.com/contact-me or click the link in the show notes to get started. Let's put your brand in the spotlight right where it belongs.
Folks, we're hanging out with Taylor Ammons, the owner and president of Paragon Roofing, creator of Ammons Advantage, and one of Nashville's most sought-out public adjusters. Now, you can keep up with him at TaylorAmmons.com and on Instagram at TaylorAmmons360. And folks, I gotta say, man, like, make sure you guys are checking this dude out online, because like the stuff that he's working with the Hit Lab and the content that is being created right now is freaking awesome. I'm gonna literally put my stamp on it right now. It's that good, and it's that good not just because of what the Hit Lab does, but because of who he is on the other side of the camera that the Hit Lab's doing its thing with, right? So that's a relationship I'm really excited about. So Taylor, tell the folks. Like if they needed to work with you, whether it be I need help with my roof, or in Nashville, every spring in March and April, it's turned into Tornado Alley type thing, know. So there's a lot of wild winds and things like that, and a lot of roof stuff going on. And there's been roofers knocking on my door in my neighborhood daily. It seems like for a while, and so folks that want to reach out. So first of all, who are the folks that want to reach out? We've got the reaching out if they need a independent private adjuster. They got the roofing stuff. Maybe what about a recovering addict?
Yeah, I definitely want to be available to those individuals as well. I mean, any homeowners that are getting pushed around by their insurance company and you need a second opinion, reach out. I'm not going to charge you anything, just to have a conversation. People looking for any roofing, home exterior stuff, projects. If I'm not the guy to do it, I know the guy who can do it.
Yeah.
Or gal.
That's right.
And then, what else? And definitely any sort of addicts or things like that. I want to be open to having conversations, because when we as alcoholics and addicts surround ourselves with people that are earlier on in their sobriety, it gives us that constant reminder of, this is who I used to be, and that person is still there if you choose to feed that lion. So let's work together. So 100%, if there's people that, even if you are wondering if you're an alcoholic, shoot me a message. Let's have a conversation.
I love it. Where can they reach you? Where's the best place to reach if they want to reach out? Is it best to send an email? Is it go DM on socials, email address? What are we looking at?
Yeah, so definitely we're getting the website finalized. I'm pumped that it should be launched by the time this airs. So any sort of contact us forms at taylorammons.com would be perfect.
Yeah.
Shoot me a message on social media, Facebook, or give us a call at the office. Our number is 615-307-ROOF. So it's 7663. Call the office, leave a message if we don't answer, and I'll definitely get back with people.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, there's just, like I say, it's all about managing expectations and doing the right thing, but more importantly, like just knowing who's responsible for what, whose jobs are what, and so on and so forth. And that's what you're a master at communicating, is understanding like what everybody's role is in something as drastic as an insurance and comprehensive as an insurance claim, especially if it's five or six figures deep.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of investigative work that has to be done before somebody strokes a check for 5 or 6 figures.
Right.
You know what I mean? And nobody wants to stroke a check for 5 or 6 figures when they're not sure that they should be the one stroking that check.
Correct. Exactly.
Or
like, hey, I don't know if I'm getting this money back.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it's got to put you in a tough spot too, because like you say, the cool thing about working with you is there was quite a bit of time and conversations happened before a scope of work that had a price could be assigned to that work, because you had to literally like, this is what we got to do and why we got to do it and how long it takes and so on. I mean, it was a great experience, Taylor, and the world's a better place because of dudes like you.
Thank you.
And I got to say, man, you just, you got the world by the balls at this point, because your outlook is exactly what it's supposed to be, but you got a level of confidence that there's like that's the foundation for which all greatness is built off of.
Yep.
And you can just, when you're around, you can just tell that your wife might say different, but it ain't, I ain't found any cracks in it yet. And it's called secure.
Yeah.
Secure. You're secure in your own skin. You're secure with your story, and you're secure with your mission of hope today. So, dude, I'm glad to know you. It's been an honor to have you on the pod today, and I just look forward to continue to work with you. I'm so excited for what we're doing with you at the Hit Lab.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I want our call that we have together every month is one of my favorite hours, dude.
Well,
You know what
man,
I mean?
that means the world to me. If there is anybody out there that is considered Hit Lab creative, man, definitely reach out to these guys, because, you know, you and I had even talked about it. I had a VA team. I did the things. My content's way better now, dude.
It's got strategy now.
Yep.
It's got purpose.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's got things to measure to make sure that, like, you know, we're on pace and we're moving the ball down the field.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We know how much time's on the clock and we're moving that ball down the field.
Yeah, 100%. But man, I'm so glad to be here. Honored to be in this chair with, you know, share the wall with some of these incredible names. And I just thank you. Thanks for all that you do here in Nashville, and I just love you, man.
The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial.
Like I say, it's been a good old time. And folks, TaylorAmmons.com, on social at TaylorAmmons360. Check them out and keep up with them. And definitely, if you are somebody that is struggling with any type of addiction, this is a dude that it'd be worth a phone call.
Absolutely.
I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you, man. Thanks for being here today, brother.
Thank you again.
Appreciate you. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.